Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Firewise Coalition meeting. My name is Caleb Dardick. This meeting is being recorded, and let me turn it over to your chair, Robert Long.
So good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's surviving the weather. So just remember, stay hydrated, and you can work outside all the time. That's what my special forces friends tell me. It's just a matter of becoming acclimatized, drink a lot of water, and you can move all the rock and cut all the timber that you want. So there's no excuse not to be outside. So welcome to our July meeting. So a couple of things, just want to remind people that, promote, if you're not a member of the Fire Safe Council, we urge you to join. Membership is $49. And we urge you to support the Fire Safe Council. As always, we're pushing reflective signs. They're $45 for the sign and the hardware to install the sign, and it's a great project for a community to do. It's amazing how many residences do not have the proper sign. And another reminder that I want to just pass on is this is certainly a time to check your go bag. You can ask the folks in Wildwood about that. So check your go bag, and just as a reminder, we had a presentation last year by one of our members about the appropriate attire when you're evacuating, and it's not sandals, a tank top, and shorts. If you do have to evacuate your home, the proper attire is long pants, a long sleeve shirt, a hat with a brim. Don't forget to bring gloves and hard-soled shoes. Because if for any reason you run into a problem and you have to get out of your car, you don't want to be walking on hot asphalt and flip-flops. So
Bob, I think it's worth mentioning cotton too, not polyester or synthetics, because they will melt from the heat.
Or wool. Wool turns out to not be flammable.
Right.
And the other thing, and people always think, oh, I'll bring a wet blanket or a wet towel, and that'll protect me in a fire situation, and that is exactly the wrong thing to do, because heat will produce steam, and the steam will burn you faster than the heat in the area. So dressing appropriately. Two other quick things is, Susan and I are still looking for our replacements, and we're kind of eyeing January as our time to switch over. And what we talked about this last week is adding a little more bureaucracy to the coalition. I mean, as you grow, I guess bureaucracy comes with it. And so we thought of putting together an advisory committee to assist the chair and the vice chair in their preparation for the meetings and in handling emails and the other few tasks that we get involved with. And so that would give Susan and I an opportunity to still be involved in the leadership of the coalition without having the day-to-day tasks that come with being the chair and the vice chair of the coalition. And so in addition to looking for a chair and a vice chair, we'd also be open to anybody who would like to be on the advisory committee.
Steering committee.
Steering committee. I use see, that's why there's two of us. So the steering committee. So if anybody wants to volunteer to be on the steering committee, please drop me an email. I would certainly appreciate it. And lastly, is our August meeting. We thought about taking a break and just not having a meeting. The Fire Safe Council doesn't have a board meeting in July, I believe. They take a vacation, and so we thought we would change it up in August. As all the Firewise communities are aware, every year there are certain things you need to do in order to be certified for the current year and thus be a recognized Firewise community for the following year. And among those things is you have to have, I'm reading from the NFPA website, at a minimum, each site is required to annually, oh, excuse me, that's the wrong line. Where is it? You have to have a, you have to have an educational event. So every year you are required to, here it is, host an outreach event and work with neighbors on addressing items in your action plan. Basically, you're supposed to have a community meeting where you have an educational event that addresses issues. Well, this year, the NFPA is loosening up on that requirement, recognizing that many of us cannot have a meeting. We can't get together for a variety of reasons. So I contacted the NFPA, and they said we could do a virtual meeting. And so that's what we're going to offer in August. The coalition is going to offer all the Firewise communities a chance to come together in August and have the virtual meeting that would meet your requirements to be certified as a Firewise community for this year. And it will simply be in the form of a neighborhood meeting. We're going to ask for volunteers to do 10-minute presentations about a project that they've done, an initiative that they've undertaken, or a subject in which they're interested. We'll try to put together 4, maybe 5. I want to keep this to an hour to 70 minutes. Excuse me. And we'll record it, and we will invite all the members of your Firewise community, not just the representatives, but everybody will be invited to attend this, because that's what's required by the NFPA, is that you have a neighborhood meeting. So this will replace, or can replace, your neighborhood meeting. So we will be sending out invitations that we'll hope that you will, if you're interested as a Firewise community, you will distribute to the people on your mailing list, and then you can refer back to this meeting when you're writing your report in November. So that's our latest thing that we want to offer to all the Firewise communities as a help.
And Bob, I would say that we're not going to ask for volunteers. We are right now in this meeting asking for any of you folks out there who have completed some sort of project or done something in your Firewise community, if you're willing to share that story as a PowerPoint, or I can help you make up a PowerPoint out of it, or you can just tell your story, and we'll figure out how to show some pictures maybe. That's what we're looking for, is for some of you representatives to step forward with your stories about community projects that would serve as an education to the other communities.
Okay, so Valerie Bush says that she's interested. Okay, Valerie.
I represent Sierra Foothills Village, and we're doing emergency preparedness training every week. In fact, every Thursday at 1 o'clock, we are doing training for the public.
And is this something you could put together in a 5 or 7, 10-minute presentation? That'd be great. Okay, you're on.
Thank you. Thank you.
We've had some very interesting things in the past. We had the fellow who organized his community to actually build or rehab a road that was used as an evacuation site. So anybody else want to? Don't everybody raise your hand at the same time, because it'll confuse the screen. But, well, there's another, oops, wrong mouse, another chat. Somebody else.
I don't see Craig on here.
Okay.
We might.
Diane Marshall.
Diane? Okay, great.
Go. And which?
You'll have to remember that to hear me, I have to take my picture away.
Okay, we can hear
We're
you now.
meeting this Saturday, and I'd be glad to talk with the. Okay, the Greenhorn Firewise community is meeting this Saturday, and we will talk about if we're able to do something.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay. And we'll let Bob and Susan know.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Okay, well, that's great.
Because we mapped all sorts of good stuff.
Okay.
Let's see, if there's anybody in this meeting who remembers seeing Chris Riley's demonstration where he basically unpacked a box of all the things that you should have in your car if you're evacuating. Wave your hand in front of the camera if you think that would be a good thing for him to repeat at this educational event. Yeah, okay, we'll probably ask Chris to do that again. That's helpful.
You might have to get him to shorten it a little bit, because I think,
Right.
Yeah.
I think it was a 30-minute or 35-minute.
Yeah, I
So-
could work with him on it.
Uh,
But since we
Susan?
saw it, those of us who came to the meeting saw it, but it's the whole point of this thing for August is that when we send out the email invitation, we want every Firewise community to forward that on to their own email list and invite all of your residents on your email list to attend this August 4th meeting.
Susan?
Yes.
This is Valerie Bush again. One of the things we're doing in our presentation is we actually demonstrate the building of a go box or a go
Great.
bag
Okay.
and a to stay box. So we've got it down to about a minute each, but basically we've got them already built, showing how we did it in our home. And then we just kind of videotape it and talk about it. But basically this shows it was ones that we created for our home.
Do you think we would not need to have Chris do his then?
I can show you what we're doing and let you make a judgment. But again, what we're trying to do is appeal to the sense of time. That has been the most appreciated portion of our presentation. That and what documents to have that you go with.
Right, right.
Okay,
That's
so
a good
those three pieces have been the most valuable. All the other stuff people are getting, in the mail and such like that, but to actually see a to-go bag, a to-stay box, and what type of documents we put in the bag to run with, that's been the most informative.
Great. Well, we might even give you 15 minutes, Valerie.
Well, don't go crazy. Yeah.
Thank you. That sounds great.
Okay, that's wonderful. Okay.
Can I just, this is Robin. The other thing, you talked about what we should wear. The presentation, I forget the gentleman who did the presentation on demonstrating the various pieces of clothing, and that would be a great one to include.
That was Chris.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll compare Chris's with Valerie's, and we try not to duplicate things. Again, I want to keep this short so that people will attend. And then it'll be up to each Firewise community to track how many of their members watched the video or attended the meeting. And of course, it'll be recorded, so you can always watch it later. And then you'll be able to report in November to the NFPA how many people attended and meet your obligation for an educational event. Okay.
Caleb,
Okay.
Caleb,
sorry.
is there a limit? Is there a limit on how many people can zoom in one of these things, one of these meetings? He's muted.
300.
300. Okay.
You
It'll be too bad if
expecting?
we break that. If
I
we
have
break
no
that
idea.
thing.
I have no idea. I'm just curious if I mean, if you get some of these big, like our community has the potential of having 100 people come. I doubt that you would get that, but it's got that potential. So
I think what we could
Interesting.
do is if we actually did max out at 300 and then people report to us that they tried to get in and they couldn't get in, we'll reschedule it and we'll do it again. Or no, actually no. If it's
They can-
recorded, we refer
Yeah.
everybody to the recording. That's right.
They can watch the recording and qualify.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Okay, so moving right along, before we get to Chief Matthias. So one of the things that the coalition does is we try to educate everybody. So in the spirit of education, Jim and I have been telling corny jokes, but we always call the jokes corny. And so the question is, why do we call them corny? Well, it turns out back at the turn of the last century, a seed catalog was trying to promote their product, and people were just not reading the seed catalog. And so they decided to start telling jokes. And they started publishing the jokes along with the seed catalog. And some of them were like, what did the corn say when he was complimented? Aw, shucks. Or another one was, what did one ear of corn say to the other? Don't look now, but we're being stalked. So these were the type of jokes that they were telling, and they were coined corny jokes. And so now that's what you hear from Jim and I is corny jokes. So
Thank you, Bob. Interesting.
well, we're just trying to be educational. And so with that, I open it up to you, Chief Matthias.
Gosh, thanks a lot. You know, it's funny because Brandon Corchero and I were hanging out on the 4th of July. And, you know, we're doing our thing of making sure everybody in the community is safe and stuff. And I was telling him that I had just bought a new ant farm for my grandson. And I said, boy, you know, in this, you know, heightened awareness of COVID-19, I hope that my ants don't get sick. And he goes, Jim, you don't have to worry. They have little antibodies. Okay. Okay. No?
Okay.
Antibodies.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Brandon's pretty smart that way. So
We get it.
yeah. Okay. Okay. So I just noticed on the agenda here that it says that I'm talking about defense versus offense. Is that what you're hoping for, or are you looking for the update here? Because I had no idea I was doing that, but I do have some material for that.
No, I thought we were just looking for your normal update.
Okay, yeah, I saw some bullet points on here, and so, okay, we'll get away from that. So my normal update, I was going to give you a whole bunch of facts and figures and numbers, and I just thought that was a little bit too much for tonight because it looks like we have a couple of other items. So I'm going to shorten it up a little bit. And the big news as far as CAL FIRE, the update for us is that we're way down on hand crews. We're normally funded for 192 hand crews up and down the state of California. Right now, between inmate releases and populations being down and lockdowns because of COVID-19 and some of our conservation camps, we're down to only 94 available crews in the whole state. So we're almost down 100 crews, which is obviously more than 50%. So we're less than 50% of what our available crews are. And luckily, us here in Nevada County, we have a full boat. So our lieutenant up at Washington Ridge Camp with the inmates has been very protective of who comes in and who comes out. So we've been very lucky, and we are unaffected so far by COVID-19 here in Nevada County at our Washington Ridge camp. So we have all 4 crews available. And as far as I know, we're the only camp in the North State that is completely available. So kudos to my partner up there, the lieutenant. He's doing a great job of keeping that out there. So what is CAL FIRE doing about that? That doesn't mean that we're just going to turn our back, because we know fire season's still coming. So what we did is we added an additional firefighter hand crew. So that's 12 firefighters and 2 captains that are training to work as a hand crew. They're normal firefighters, so they already kind of know the game, but they haven't worked as a unified hand crew until they started last week. So they're learning that part of the job, which is a little bit different, but along the same lines of what they're already doing, and becoming more efficient at that. So we have 1 crew available there. So we know that our crews are going to get sent out up and down the state of California with the numbers that I just told you about. So we have 1 additional crew. We also have added another dozer to our unit. So we normally have 3 dozers in the Nevada EVACUATION unit, but we now have a 4th that's a reserve dozer and tractor and trailer, the whole setup to be able to staff. And we've added 2 of the operators for that into our unit. So we're a little bit more prepared than we were last year as far as dozers. And then we're also adding a 2nd National Guard hand crew that isn't fully trained yet, but they're in the process of that. So within the next 2 weeks, we'll not only have 1 National Guard hand crew, but we'll have 2. So we're looking pretty good there. So what are the numbers? We've been pretty busy over the 4th of July week. So when I say 4th of July week, I'm talking about June 29th to July 6th. In Nevada EVACUATION unit, we ran 30 vegetation fires, 10 medical rescues, 4 water rescues, and all the other calls that go along with that. So we've been fairly busy. And when we compare the numbers from 2019, from January till 1st of 2019 to July 5th of 2019 to this year, I noticed that we're down on the number of acres that have burned. So 2019 was 1,682. This year has been 1,050. So we're down 632 total acres that have burned in the Nevada EVACUATION unit. And then the only problem with that is we're up 123 acres, or I'm sorry, 123 fire starts. So 95 in 2019 and 215 so far this year, which is putting us up 123. So why that's not correlating, why we have so many more fires in so few acres, I'd love to say that that we're just really lucky and really good firefighters. But I think the fact of the matter is that so far a lot of people have been locked in. And last year in Nevada EVACUATION, our folks were spread all over the place. So by this time of year, so it gave a good opportunity for some of those fires to get going. So that's where we're at right now. That's my update. And then as far as some other great information, our defensible space inspectors are working away in Lake Wildwood right now. So if you live down there, please do your best to make sure you're communicating with them and getting an education. And it seems insurmountable during the summertime when it's so hot outside to do all that defensible space inspections. And that's, we begged you to do that earlier in the year when it was not so hot. So now is the time to just do whatever you can. A little bit, you know, pick one side of your house every day and clear 5 feet around it. Make sure you have that 5 feet of no combustion zone. Just do one side of your house every day till it gets hot. Do the next side and you know, make use of that stay-at-home time. So that's it for me. Thanks for listening and thanks for my job.
Thanks, Chief. Okay, any questions for Chief Matthias? Okay, Patrick, are you gonna speak for Consolidated, or is Terry? I don't know. Is Terry
Yeah,
there?
yeah,
Okay.
I got it.
Thank you, Patrick.
So for Nevada County Consolidated, we just wrapped up our July 4th task force, where we work hand in hand with law enforcement and try and pick up all the fireworks complaints. Got fairly busy Friday and Saturday night. A lot of people bringing in fireworks, even though we try to post it. We put up our message signs down at Higgins Corner about no fireworks allowed in Nevada County. Still ran quite a few of those. The other thing that was real busy for us was the river crossings, Edwards Crossing, Purdon's Crossing. When people are parking down there, they're just parking wherever they want, to the point where we would not be able to get emergency apparatus down there. So we spent a lot of time down there, about 7 hours between Friday and Saturday, trying to clear out some spots. Had an individual pull a 30-foot travel trailer down to Edwards Bridge. Spent about 4 hours trying to get him turned around and back out of there. So just clogged up the entire road. So if you're going down to the river, just kind of heads up where you're parking. Think about the emergency apparatus that we got to get down there in case of river rescues or fires coming out of the drainage. What else do we got? Hear about 3 months ago, I sent out letters to all the vacant parcel owners within our fire district. We're starting to see the compliance come around now. A lot of parcels are getting a lot of work done. But the thing is, we're looking at 7 to 8 weeks lag time for companies to come out and do the vegetation clearing now. So they're very busy. If you have a vacant parcel next to you, you live within our fire district, hopefully they're going to be getting some work done, but just understand it might take a while. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on, we're going to be putting some social media posts out is use of power tools. We really want to start thinking about what time we're using those. We want to try and use the power tools before 10 a.m. in the morning. And if it's a red flag warning, like the last couple of days, the wind's been blowing, try not to use the power tools at all. If you're out there cutting your brush, we do see a lot of times people will use their power tools before 10 a.m., but then they'll pull out the metal rakes and start raking in the afternoon. So then think about using plastic rakes instead of the metal rakes. Just reduce those sparks and hopefully keep those ignitions down. That's what I got.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Paul, we'll save you for next. And so is the Fire Safe Council, Jamie or Don, are you gonna, any words of wisdom from, like, how did the green waste end up collection?
Hey, Julie was supposed to be on. She was going to give the rundown on the green waste drop-off information.
I don't know if,
you know, I don't see her showing up here, but she was supposed to be on.
okay. Do you have any idea how it turned out, or?
It was very, very successful, and I don't have the exact numbers, but I know it was way over what they anticipated as far as tons coming in. Warren might have a little bit of information on that. Warren Knox, our secretary, is also on today. Warren, if you could chime in, if you can remember the numbers on the green waste. I don't have them off the top of my head.
Yes, I think last I heard it was somewhere close to 5,000 loads that came into all over.
How does that compare to last year?
We didn't really do this that well last year.
Okay.
People seem to really enjoy it too. I mean, we got a lot of good kudos, and even people that brought in stuff that was not acceptable were very gracious when they were told it wasn't acceptable. So we didn't have any real problems. People were very happy to have that in place.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's all we've heard is that, you know, people were happy and grateful, and that it was a very, very successful event. So that's good. Anything else, Don, to report?
You know, Jamie's on her way back from a doctor's visit in Roseville today. So she said Julie was going to be on. I'm going to try calling Julie here, and hopefully I can get her on to fill us in. But if I get her, I'll have her contact. Yeah.
Okay. Then let's move on to OES, and Paul, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Bob. I'm going to bring up our PowerPoint presentation. And so just 1 minute here, see if I can share. Can everybody see that okay?
Looks good, Paul.
Looks good.
You guys got it. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Paul Cummings. I'm the Nevada County Office of Emergency Services Program Manager. Very happy to be here this evening with all of you. I normally have Lieutenant Bob Jacobs, who works in our office with the Sheriff's Department, but he's off on some well-deserved R&R right now, and we've got Sergeant Brandon Corchero with us, who will be presenting the Sheriff's Department evacuation portion of our slideshow. And so I think it was Virginia who asked, we provided this presentation to Lake Wildwood last week, if we could present it to all of you. And, you know, Brandon and I were just talking that many of you are all the subject matter experts on a lot of this. And in some ways, we're kind of preaching to the choir here. But what we hope is that if this presentation resonates with you, you can, of course, ask us questions at the end. We're happy to answer those. But we hope to be able to provide this presentation in this medium to your communities. So with COVID, we know it's hard right now to actually get out and provide the presentation, but we'd be happy to do this via Zoom. And I know it's being recorded, so maybe it could be shared. So our first slide here. So our first slide, really, we put this up to just represent some of the challenges that we face in Nevada County. And many of you who've been here a long time know this, right? Narrow roads going through very heavily wooded areas. That top right picture represents the forest health challenges, you know, bark beetle and some of the other forest health issues we have that contribute to the wildfire risk. You know, the bottom left, we've got, you know, Grass Valley, and just showing our homes and businesses and their proximity to the trees and the forests that we love, that wildland urban interface. And then the bottom right, the risk that we all face, the largest threat to all of us here in Nevada County, the wildfire risk. And as many of you know, you've heard this before, if you look at the CAL FIRE risk maps, 92% of Nevada County is in a high or very high fire severity zone. But thankfully, there's groups out there like yours that are working to educate the public and increase their readiness and also reduce our threat. So I'm going to see if I can get this to play, and hopefully there's audio for you. But this is a video, you've seen many like this, of a family trying to evacuate from Paradise. And I'll just let that play, and I don't think we're getting the audio.
Help us to be safe. I'm thankful for Jeremy and his willingness to be brave.
So that's a tough video to watch. Let me see. Yeah, so that's a tough video to watch, and you know, and I've seen it a couple times, but I think it just really paints the picture of that this is the potential threat that we face here in Nevada County. Hopefully, we can do these large scale programs that we'll talk about, working on private roads and county roads to reduce the roadside vegetation so that we're not evacuating through that tunnel of fire, and so that we can make evacuation safer for our residents, and then also for our first responders to get in and out during a wildfire. Another thing I'd like to point out about that video, a couple other big points of get out early if you can, so that you're not faced with that and you're not in a traffic jam with fire all around you. But you know, Sergeant Corchero is going to bring this up during his presentation when he talks about finding 3 ways out of your neighborhood, day or night. So that fire looked like they were evacuating at night, but it was during the day, as you saw when they popped out, right? So you may know your neighborhood like the back of your hand, but if there's smoke everywhere so that it looks like it's nighttime and you're scared, it may be tough to get out. So practice getting out of your neighborhood and find 3 ways out. We put this slide up just to introduce our team. I think most of you know us. Myself, Lieutenant Bob Jacobs, and Jen Tamo. And then we've got our temporary or seasonal defensible space inspector, Sterling Ashman. Some of you may have met him. And we're also working to continue to bolster our defensible space team. We've got advertisements out to try to hire there. So this graphic really, this just represents the 5 goals that we put forward to the Board of Supervisors, and Caleb helped us shape these when we started in January. So the first being, we want to create safer evacuation routes countywide to save lives. And that's what that first one on the left is. And that's not an exaggeration, that's in Nevada County. And there are people who face that when they're trying to get out. And so we want to work with the community to try to reduce that risk. The next one there with the little envelopes and phones and things is focused on improving early warning systems and emergency communications to reach everyone. We want to get the message out through as many mediums as possible about preparedness, but then also during the response phase of an event. That middle graphic shows the defensible space diagram. You've seen that. You should have all got that in your Ready, Set, Go handbook. That just represents a large part of our mission in OES, partnering with Nevada County Consolidated, to get out there and educate the public around things they can do to reduce the threat to their home. And I think you heard Chief Matthias mention that as well with the State Public Resource Code side of things. The one that shows the gears and the people represents our coordinated approach to planning and community outreach and fundraising, doing things like this, the town halls that some of you have been part of and the stakeholder meetings, just really trying to connect with the public, identify where the problem areas are, collaboratively plan and educate. And then lastly, on the right, one of our goals was to work to enhance critical infrastructure by doing things like evacuation route improvements, green waste facilities, communication systems. And with COVID, we didn't get after that goal as much as we would have liked, but it's going to be an ongoing goal for us. So we put this picture up to represent the absolute just spider web of roads that we have in Nevada County. And this is just Western Nevada County. So again, many of you locals recognize this map here. But it just really tells the story of the scope of the problem. And I think this will also tie into Sergeant Corchero's portion of the briefing for evacuation. That there's 560 miles of county maintained roads that the Public Works Office is trying to brush and reduce the roadside vegetation on a 11-year cycle. They have gotten a grant from CAL FIRE that we've talked about on here before, that the county, we're all very thankful for that, which should hopefully reduce that revisit rate of 11 years, because we know brush grows back every 5 years. And so they were doing about 70 miles a year with Public Works, and they're hoping to do more than that now with this grant. And then the private roads, the 1,500 miles of roads that are privately owned, and that's where we all come in. That's where we have to work at a community level to reduce the roadside vegetation in front of our homes, and then also on our streets, work with our neighbors to do that, to get our 10 feet over and 15 feet up. This represents our hazardous vegetation reduction program. This is kind of an umbrella term for a lot of the things we're doing to reduce the fuel load in our county, because that's what we can do to reduce our risk. Because we talked about in the beginning, the CAL FIRE risk assessment of much of our county being in that high and very high fire severity zone. Doing things like this will hopefully reduce that risk. So starting at the left, that's an older picture of some of our seasonal inspectors. We've spoken on here before about the County Defensible Space Ordinance. I won't go into great detail there. There is a new ordinance now that's been approved by the board. It's 2477 is the number. Next slide over, green waste. I think, we touched on that earlier. I do want to thank this community for many of you went out and volunteered with the Fire Safe Council to make sure that that went smoothly, and it went really well, especially considering COVID, so thank you. And then I thank all of you and the residents and your neighbors who participated to reduce the fuel load on their property, because this thing was wildly successful. We've got the Ponderosa shaded fuel break on there just to outline, you see the green outline there of, this is the shaded fuel break, and I won't go into great detail here because I know you've all heard about it before, But these are the kind of projects that OES collaborates with CAL FIRE and the Fire Safe Council on to try to, on a large scale, reduce the risk to our communities and give our firefighters a place where they can make a stand and knock down a big fire. And then that last graphic represents the roadside vegetation work that our public works team is doing. So this slide starts the conversation around things you can do to keep up your situational awareness. And like I said in the beginning, this is a very tuned in, very aware group of people, and I recognize that. And so this is more of a broad presentation for different groups. But I hope that you can carry some of this message back to your neighbors. So starting off on the left, monitoring trusted news sources. And I think many of you know who those are. You know, Ubinet, the Union, things like that. Local news. Keeping tuned into the National Weather Service, because that's where we're going to hear about the red flags. I think we all know that on red flag days, just like Chief Matthias has said, that's when our fire risk goes up, and we'll talk about in a couple slides what a red flag day looks like. ReadyNevadaCounty.org, that's yeah, that's something the OES, we've tried to brand with a lot of our partners around getting our community ready, but there's a lot of information you can find there. And then all the other standard mediums of Facebook, Twitter, Nextdoor. If you stay tuned into all of these mediums, you'll hopefully see information as it comes out, because I know I am, and I'll see the information cascade about a fire or a red flag as that information comes forward. We've got the hand crank radio on there as a reminder that that's just another safety net, right? Many of you say, hey, during a PSPS or a big wildfire, the power is going to go out. How am I going to get notified? How am I going to get my code red? Well, code red is a tool. It's not a silver bullet. It's one of the many safety nets we have to get you informed. Sergeant Corchero will touch on that later on. But so have a hand crank radio or solar powered radio that you can tune in again to those trusted news sources like KVMR or KNCO. And then we've got the phone off the hook, just as a reminder that if you have a landline, maybe have a backup of a cell phone. So what does a red flag day look like? I think, again, many of you have seen this, but we just wanted to put this out there as a reminder. You've also got this graphic in your Ready, Set, Go handbook. Strong winds greater than 25 miles an hour, high temperatures, low humidity levels, dry fuels, and then the possibility of an ignition source like lightning, but that's not the only ignition source that could start a fire. So during red flag days, again, we're starting to kind of build this story that you need to be tuned in. And then if you hear about a red flag day, well, what do you do to make sure that you increase your situational awareness and your readiness level on a red flag day? So personal preparedness. So there's things that you can do, and I don't want to go into great detail because I know this community is already very familiar with that, but it was mentioned to have a go bag at your home. It was mentioned to have some of your personal effects ready, whether it be photo albums and important papers and the things that you'll need for your pets and your children and everything that you need to get out, and maybe having an additional supply in your car. So I won't go into what you should have as far as gear and equipment, but just remember that that's an important part of your readiness. This next slide has a bunch of graphics that talk about some of the challenges on a red flag day, some of the considerations on a red flag day. So starting on the left, we've got the public safety power shut off. PG&E is going to turn the power off under red flag conditions, depending on what those red flag conditions look like on our area, because that's putting their infrastructure at risk. And their infrastructure, if the wind is blowing, could potentially cause a fire. And so that already puts us a little bit behind the power curve if there is the power being shut down on a day when there is a heightened fire danger. So some things that you can do: top off the fuel tank in your vehicle. That's pretty self-explanatory. We've got the picture of somebody trying to open their garage door manually. That's a consideration, that if you've got an automatic garage door and you don't know how to open it if the power is out, maybe open it and leave it open before the power goes out if you know it's a planned outage, or know how to pull that handle and get it open if you have to. There's a picture of a vehicle that's backed into the driveway. That's something that you should do to, again, reduce your time when you're trying to get out. We've got the go bag, which we mentioned. Pets, you know, in the carrier, have everything you need for your pets, your leashes, the food, the water, the pet carrier ready to go. The Find Your Five plan here. Sergeant Corchero will touch on this as well when his slides come up. And I know that this group is very familiar, but essentially, for those of you who haven't heard, this is an emergency alliance group that you form with people that are in your neighborhood, people that are in our county, and maybe somebody that's outside of our county in another state. And these are people that you would talk to and message on a red flag day. And if there's a wildfire as well, you would want to be sharing messaging with them. This becomes another safety net. So if the power goes out and you slept through the code red, and Patrick Mason is in my group of 5, he'll call me and say, "Hey, Paul, I just saw that there's a red flag or there's a fire and you live in Lake Wildwood, so wake up and get out." And so it's an accountability, a mutual accountability system to where we rely on each other to pass information and to also pass our plan. If it's a red flag day, I might say, "Hey, my plan is that I'm going to go to the Kmart parking lot if there's a fire and I have to evacuate. That's going to be my rally point." So we share that. We have some no-nos listed there, like dragging chains, running a lawnmower, or like Patrick said, equipment that could cause a spark, and then burn piles. And I think I'll get a head nod probably from Patrick and from Chief that I think there's no more burn piles as of June 15th, I believe, right? Is that correct, Patrick? Yes, okay. No more burn piles. So we shouldn't even be talking about this, but that is something that could certainly cause problems this time of year and definitely on a red flag. So at this point, I want to turn the presentation over to Sergeant Corchero. He's going to talk about, he'll just reiterate some of the points around, Find Your Five and the evacuation meetups. And Brandon, I'll click your slides for you. I do want to touch quickly on the Lake Wildwood fire and Nevada County Consolidated and the Sheriff's Department and CAL FIRE. We worked together to put out a message that came from OES last week about when you'll get a code red. And Sergeant Corchero's slides are going to talk about the definitions for an evacuation warning and for an evacuation order. And in that situation, the fire did not meet the criteria of homes and lives being put at risk. And so a code red was not issued. And so we had a lot of questions of why didn't I get my code red? That's a tool that's used only under special circumstances. So I'll go ahead and stop there and I'll turn it over to Brandon if you're on. Are you unmuted, Brandon? Is your mic working okay?
Yeah, he's there and unmuted.
I think he's having some trouble. You keep troubleshooting, Brandon, and I'll start briefing your slides, and feel free to talk over me if you have.
Paul, we could take a few questions that came in the chat. I don't know if you can see them with the screen up.
I can't see them, so no, this is a great time to take questions.
All right, Diane had a question about this PowerPoint. Is it available to share with our neighbors? Is it posted on the county's OES or the coalition's webpage?
That is a great suggestion, Diane. I will take that for action and we will post it. We could share it. It's really big though. And I emailed it to Caleb and it came through the county system. So I think it made it through. But to be honest, I was trying to share it with Virginia via email and we were having a hard time doing that because there's videos and other things in there. So we can talk about sharing it. I'm happy to do that, but we'll definitely post it.
Yeah, you might do it as a PDF too. And then Valerie had a question. She mentioned that in addition to the garage doors, some folks need help with their electronic gates. And then last year we heard that if there was a winds in the valley in Yuba County, that it could cause a PSAPS event for us. Is that correct?
I don't want to speak for PG&E, but we have been liaising closely with them on public safety power shutoff preparedness. What they will say, I think, is that they've got some new modeling that they're going to try to use to keep the footprint of the outage as small as possible. but I think it always doesn't make sense to us when we're maybe downstream of an event and they had to shut the power off upstream. And so I know we've addressed that with them, and I don't want to go too far speaking for them as far as what we could expect depending on where there's weather.
Okay. Patricia asked, you mentioned evacuating to the Kmart parking lot. Does that mean it is safe to park a vehicle in an empty parking lot and wait out a fire?
So I just use that as an example of that's part of Paul Cummings' rally point plan, that if there's a fire in Lake Wildwood and, you know, I was able to safely evacuate, if there's no threat up the hill in Grass Valley, that's where I would go. But we would want to have multiple places like that that we've talked through and planned for. But I know the folks that are watching my kids and, you know, my wife, that's where we would all go meet. So if Chief Matthias is on or Patrick Mason, I would let them answer the question about waiting out a fire if you're surrounded. But I think that's a bigger, broader conversation that we may not want to start today.
Yeah, Paul, that's a lot of stuff. And the answer is the good old, it depends.
Yeah.
So nobody can really predict fire behavior, you know, what it's going to look like unless you're, you know, kind of a professional. So yeah, longer conversation, and we'd be happy to discuss it another day.
Yeah, I would say, honestly, get out early, follow first responder instructions from fire department to law enforcement that's evacuating you, be a good follower, be a good listener, and then in the absence of all of that, use your best judgment to do what you think will keep you safe.
Paul, looks like we have Brandon on available, and I think I can hear him moving around. Yes, we can.
Perfect. Sorry about that, guys. So I'm Sergeant Brandon Cortrero at the Sheriff's Office, for those of you that don't know me, and I'm the Community Outreach Sergeant here, stepping in for Lieutenant Jacobs tonight, so I'll do my best to present this information to you guys. One of the things we want to talk about is evacuation readiness, and as the Sheriff's Office, that's going to be our primary function in a fire is evacuation, public safety, and really making sure everybody gets out safely. One of the things I want to talk about is really planning ahead and preparing and practicing your evacuations, with that being the routes that you may be taking during a fire, because fires can change. We'll do our best to inform where the fire is and the potential direction it's going, which may change your evacuation route. So stressing that you practice those routes. As Paul said, in the Paradise Fire on that video you watched, it was daytime out, but it appeared like it was the middle of the night. So these fires make things really dark. And so actually practicing your routes at nighttime so you can orient yourself to the different roadways. Another thing you could think about is actually on your way to work each day, maybe taking a different route to make sure you know those routes. That way, when your adrenaline is going, you'll have an understanding of where you need to go. The other thing we want to talk about is having an evacuation meeting place. This is something really for your family members or your close friends. If you get evacuated, there's a good chance you may not have phone service and you may not be able to call your family members or your friends to let them know where you're going to be going. So to have some pre-planned locations so that your family can meet you there. Obviously, depending upon where the fire is, you may or may not be able to get to those locations, but having several different locations to choose from. Knowing your Find Your Five, obviously you guys are all aware of this, and you can find it on readynevadacounty.com. And going through that and just making sure that you have different locations that you could go to and people to contact in case you're evacuated. Obviously, none of us really want to be stuck in a shelter if we're evacuated for a long period of time. So having those locations ahead of time where you may be able to go and stay out of the shelters and contact information and people you can call during an evacuation or after you've been evacuated. Next slide, please, Paul. We recently, the Sheriff's Office recently came out with OES with these new evacuation tags. I know this has been a thought for several years, and so it's nice to see these out now and being given to the public. The cool thing about these tags is they're Tyvek material, so they're weather resistant from water, sun, and things like that. You can pick these tags up at your local fire departments. I think many of them have them, as well as the Sheriff's Office. We are in the process of trying to get more made. So we're a little bit limited right now, but we're doing the best we can to make sure we get as many out as possible. The idea behind these tags is when the Sheriff's Office is out evacuating and fire personnel is helping us with evacuations and things like that, a lot of our areas in Nevada County are very rural with long driveways, some of them being a mile long at times. And so it takes a lot of time for deputies to go door to door in these driveways and try and knock on the door. So the nice thing with these tags is if you have one, you can hang it at the end of your driveway, your mailbox, or your address marker, which tells the deputies coming through your neighborhood that your house has already been evacuated and we can move on to the next one. There's a lot of folks that have come with questions on where exactly they can post this. The best thing I can say is post it in a location to where a deputy driving by your house could see the sign and understand that you've been evacuated, whether that be your mailbox or a gate at the end of your driveway, or potentially if you live right on the road, hang it from your doorknob or things like that. So the hope is that this will drastically speed up evacuations for us out in the field during these emergencies. Next slide, please, Paul. One of the big things with evacuations is oftentimes it seems that sometimes people wait too long to evacuate. And we can't stress enough the importance of when that evacuation order goes out to evacuate immediately. Grab your pets, grab your go bag, grab whatever major essentials you need and head out of the area. We can't fend off these fires with a garden hose by ourselves. And quite honestly, the longer we wait at home, the more traffic issues we're going to have and the harder it's going to be for everybody to get out of the area. So when that evacuation order goes into place, try and get out as quickly as you can. Obviously, there's some different orders that may be presented to the community. The shelter-in-place order, which would simply mean go inside your house, lock your doors. This is a lot more for law enforcement events that may be taking place in your area. We have evacuation warnings, which that means there's a potential threat to life or property, and you have a little bit of time to get evacuated. Obviously, your immediate evacuation order means it's time to go and we need to get out of there as soon as we can. That doesn't mean you wait 20 minutes and leave. It means you leave right away. And we are going to be doing our best to give these orders out through a code red system, which I'm sure you guys are all very well aware of, as well as the high-low sirens that we've installed in our cars last year, as well as notifications, personal notifications to doors. We'll be on our PA systems and doing everything we can to try and get that notice out to you guys. Next slide, please. As far as the code red system goes, I know that everyone on here is aware of the code red system. I just want to stress the importance of getting signed up for the code red system, whether it be for a wildfire or really any other emergency that's taking place here in Nevada County. If you have a potential to be affected by it, we're going to try and get those emergency alerts out. You can do it on readynevadacounty.org, and you can register for an account, and you can also do it on the by calling 211. We're gonna play a quick video. I'm sure the sound is going to be out again, but this is on our new high-low system.
Can you guys hear the audio from the sheriff or no?
Keeping this in mind, your local police chiefs and I would like
It's
to
very
Can you turn it
low.
up?
sound we will be using to notify you and your family of an immediate evacuation order. This new high-low system will not replace our code red notifications. It is simply another way in which we can notify you and your family of an emergency in your area. Situational awareness means using all of your senses during an emergency.
Eyes, nose, and ears.
The high-low siren is a new sound to help you stay safe in an emergency.
It is specifically designed to alert you to an immediate evacuation order.
If you hear this sound, it means only one thing: evacuate immediately. You will only hear this sound during an evacuation order.
If time permits, officers and deputies will be responding to your area and using PAs and going door to door to do evacuations. But if you hear this sound, you can help them in doing their job safely and evacuate the area immediately.
If you miss the announcement or have questions, please do not call 911. Immediately institute your family's evacuation plan. Contact 211 if you have questions, or go to a trusted media source once you are safely evacuated.
Remember, 911 is only for emergencies.
The Nevada County Sheriff's Office, Grass Valley Police Department, and Nevada City Police Department have all installed these sirens in their patrol vehicles. So if you hear this siren, it means one thing and one thing only: evacuate and evacuate immediately.
Nevada County is now part of a special pilot program instituted by Napa County to be better prepared for evacuations. State, regional, and local officials who made this happen now welcome you, our community members, to the team.
Your job? Know the sound and know what it means.
Evacuate.
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 All right, and I'll turn it back over to Sergeant Corchero. He's going to get the last two slides. Advance it. Oops. Technical difficulties.
Looks like Brandon might be frozen.
Oh, it looks like Paul's frozen too. Caleb's not.
Yeah, it's a pretty big file. I don't know if that's the issue.
Well, you know, Julie Sigenthaler's here now. Why don't we see if
Yeah.
Julie can jump in with her report? And then if those guys manage to get back on, we can tag them on at the end.
Sounds like a good idea.
Are you ready, Julie?
I am. Thank you so much. Nice to see you guys. How is everybody? All right. So the first thing up, I think I'm going to talk about the green waste because I think that's what everybody's interested in right now. We are finished with the collection at the 4 sites in Western Nevada County, or, sorry, 3 in Western Nevada County and 1 in Eastern. We're wrapping up the the grinding up of the material that's been collected. We collected a great deal more than we thought we did, and a lot more than our target. That's all right. We can deal with that. I don't have the final numbers right now. We had connectivity issues over at the Brunswick guys valley. And so we're having some people in the office do the input of manual data that was collected on tablets paper, the old-fashioned kind of tablet. So we should have some final numbers soon. I think that the county is looking to do a press release on that, and so that fairly quickly. We had over 95 volunteers who came out to help us at this event, and some of them were just incredibly hardcore. They worked so hard out in the sun, especially at that Grass Valley Rise Gold site. Sierra was nice and shady and small, and it was more like a nice day out in the woods. And unfortunately, Brunswick was a lot like a concrete jungle. We've got a lot of participation this year. I think that some of the factors include COVID-19 stay-at-home orders that kept people confined so that they would get their work done around their properties. And also, I think that the number of weeks consecutive really helped to encourage participation, give people an opportunity to chip away at the work that needed to be done week by week. And so I think that they took advantage of the service a great deal more. The numbers in terms of loads received at the sites were fairly consistent. We saw through Memorial Day and the following weekend at most sites, followed by a leveling off, where the Rise Gold site on Brunswick, it was a consistent, steady climb. And at one point, we were collecting over 500 loads per day at that one location, which is amazing. We're gonna send a survey out soon. We'll communicate that via social media and the different media sources like Ubinet, just to get some important data, some important feedback on what people thought, what they thought went well, what they thought we could have done better. And we're gonna be sharing that feedback as we get it. Just as we have, sorry, I've got a couple of people here in the house. Hold on. Don't let the dogs in. Thank you. Okay, sorry about that. As far as the feedback that we collected from people just, in passing as we spoke with them, they were incredibly grateful. I think that this service they felt was such a huge benefit to them. And a phrase that I don't think I've ever heard out of someone's mouth before is, I'd sure be willing to pay more taxes if we could have services like this, which I think is astounding. Anyway, the feedback also included comments about how smoothly everything was run. They felt like they could get over to the site and get out of the site very quickly, multiple loads per day. They felt it was much faster this year, and they greatly appreciated the paid staff who could do the unloading for them. And of course, part of that was the no contact aspect of it, but also there were a lot of people who just physically were not able to get the loads out of their trucks or trailers, and they loved the fact that there were people there to help them with that. As I said before, we'll be doing the tabulating. Some of the data that we collected would be the cubic yards of raw material collected, as well as the cubic yards of mulch that was produced. We also will have the final numbers for loads. I'm just going to give you a hint. If you guess 9,000, you're too low. And we'll also give you the total numbers of hours that people spent preparing their defensible space and their loads that they brought in, as well as any dollars that were paid. And all of that goes to the in-kind aspect of the project. I would say that if you want to share a message for me that I would really appreciate, if people appreciated the green waste, if you could tell them to become members of the Fire Safe Council, I would love that. I think that if you're looking at $30 to $40 per load in savings dropping off the green waste, then a $49 membership is a really small ask, and it goes to that program supporting the office operations as well as all the other services that we provide. So we've also asked people to tell the county supervisors thank you for making that a priority. And I think that that's important for the supervisors to hear from their constituents how much a service like this was appreciated. So let me just segue right into something that is related to the green waste. There were some funds that came in from Northern Sierra Air Quality Management District as well as OES. And those funds make it available, make access and functional needs available for about 15 households. And so if you could help spread the word that we are looking for candidates for access and functional needs. So those are services that are provided creating defensible space for low-income seniors or low-income disabled individuals. We'd like to get those people lined up as quickly as possible. Again, that's specifically for creating defensible space about the 100 feet around the home, around the structures. And we may require proof of income just to make sure that they qualify for that. The best way to get an application in, if you know of anybody or want to communicate that, is to go to our website, www.rufiresafe.com, all spelled out. Click on the upper right on forms and more, and then scroll down to forms, and it should bring you to the 2020 Access and Functional Needs application. I think that is about it. You should be, I think, as I said, you should be getting a press release fairly soon for not only green waste, but for access and functional needs. And that's all I have to say about that. Oh, one thing, the guide, the wildfire season preparedness guide was delayed. We were so busy, all hands on deck, working on green waste, but everything is complete as of today. I'm just waiting for a couple more ads to come in from people who purchased advertising space. So you can look for that coming out soon as well.
Julie, we had a question, and that was, when is the next green waste event going to occur?
We're looking at next year. We typically do this around May or June, and so you can look for that. We have some potentially exciting news about a possible contributor or financial partner to help us extend that program. But I would say May and June is what you're going to be looking for next year.
And then we can always remind the person who asked the question that there's always a chipping program, which is fantastic. I mean, and the chipping crews this year, not quite sure what Julie did to them, but they work about twice as fast as they have in the past. Because our neighbors were amazed here in Sherwood Forest when they were gone in a day, when last year they took several days, and they chipped almost a 50% more than they chipped last year. So they're very efficient and neat. So kudos for that.
Thank you. Let me brag for a moment. The tall redhead with the curly hair was my son.
I'm sure he was working the hardest.
I'm sure he was.
They were great.
There's another question here for Julie. How will the fire safety guide be distributed?
The wildfire season preparedness guide will be distributed through the union as usual. I think there are about 9,200 copies that go out to the subscribers of the union. We also have 2,000, 3,000, I forget exactly what the numbers are, maybe 5,000 for Wildwood and 3,000 for Lake of the Pines. And then the Fire Safe Council gets a big stack of them. And so we're going to be providing those to our defensible space advisors for handing out. We'll also have those in the office. We've promised the advertisers that we're going to be giving them some as well to hand out to people that they do work with. And Chamber of Commerce and a variety of other places.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Okay, so we've got Paul back online, and he's unfrozen. So I think there's one or two more slides to go, Paul?
Yeah, it shouldn't be much longer. Sorry about that, folks. Not sure what happened. Let me go back to sharing. And Sergeant Corchero is going to pick up with the next slide or two, this one being evacuation decision matrix.
Yeah, so as far as evacuations go, it's really important to understand that we work with the fire agencies and put a lot of thought into when and where we're going to evacuate in a particular area. What we do is we design what's called a unified command. And in that unified command, we have representatives from the different fire agencies as well as law enforcement. And one of our key components of that as far as law enforcement goes is really getting in the ears of the fire personnel and trying to figure out what's going on with the fire, what the fire's behaviors are, where we think that fire may be going. And we look at getting information as far as topography, the weather, the fuel in that area, and we make our determinations as to when we're going to evacuate and what locations we are going to evacuate. One thing that's important to understand is the available resources that we have for these evacuations. For instance, if something were to occur during the daytime, we have a lot more resources working as far as law enforcement goes to help out with evacuations than if something were to occur at night. So that may change a little bit on how we conduct our evacuations. But really what it starts with is getting into those communities with our high-low sirens, putting out the code red, getting on our PA systems, going to door when we need to. And that's our initial folks into the area. Once we have a good grasp on that, we start setting up roadblocks and trying to divert traffic in a certain direction depending on the direction the fire is moving, what roads we need them to go on. And really trying to keep other people out of the area from coming in. So that's really what goes into the decision-making process of the evacuations. Do you want me to cover this too, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I can breeze through it too. I think we just wanted to familiarize the public with what kind of information you're likely to get in a code red. It's going to be short and concise initially. It's going to be very basic about this is the sheriff's office. Evacuations have been ordered for your area. You know, leave immediately. They're going to give you probably the location of the fire and the direction it's burning. What they're not going to tell you is turn left on Pleasant Valley Road and then turn right on, you know, Highway 20. They're not going to give you specific directions in a code red because the situation is very dynamic and it's changing. And that ties back to, I think, what Sergeant Corchero said about knowing multiple ways out of your neighborhood. Oftentimes we get asked, hey, you know, how can I get out of my neighborhood? I want to know what the Alta Sierra evacuation plan is. It's just like Chief Matthias said, and I think what Sergeant Corchero will say is it depends, right? So it's going to depend on conditions. It's going to depend on what the fire is doing. And then, so I'll just go ahead and close this out here. So the last slide was, you know, what is your role? What is all of our role as citizens? To reduce the hazards in our home, around our homes, reduce our fuel load, make our roadside safer, develop a plan so that way, you know, the sheriff's department's not knocking on your door telling you, hey, there's a fire. Did you know about it? You're already long gone and you've got your evacuation tag out there. You've got your supplies ready. You have a high level of situational awareness. You're monitoring emergency communications. And then other things that you can do if it's not affecting you personally, how can you support the community, whether it be, you know, through the Red Cross, taking FEMA trainings, other things like that that you can do to support the people that are responding and to support your neighbors. So at that point, or at this point, we'll stop and we'll take questions for Sergeant Corchero and I around evacuation and wildfire preparedness.
Paul, there's a question from Diane Marshall about, and it sounded like Sergeant Corchero said that you're going to be printing more of these evacuation tags. Is there a plan to use the Firewise to communities to distribute them? It's probably a funding issue, I'm guessing, in terms of the quantity that we could get a lot of them distributed through Firewise communities. And so just what's happening there?
Yeah, and I can start that answer. There was a limited buy because you're right, there is a funding issue. It was a few $1,000s to get them. So I think this initial, we were wanting to get people to just volunteer to take them on a smaller scale, but there absolutely will be a greater purchase. I think the other side of it too, that during this very first purchase was to reserve some for our law enforcement folks. I mean, I think Sergeant Cortrell probably nod his head, but they've all got them in their cars now, so that they are going to be going out and putting these on homes that they have evacuated as well. So it's important that you put that on there yourself to save them the trip of going down your driveway, but that we also had to keep some in reserve for their own response. Is that correct, Sergeant Cortrell?
Yeah, all of our cars have several of them, and so that's exactly right. When we evacuate a residence, we will place the tag as well.
There was another question about locking your house during an evacuation. Should we or shouldn't we?
Well, I've personally never heard that either way, so I don't have a perfect answer for you on that question. I would say yes, lock your house personally to try and save your belongings from looters and things like that that typically happen at every fire. We are going to, just like we have in several other fires, and when we helped out in Paradise, that's exactly what we were doing, was patrolling just for that, for looters and activity that was going on, and making sure people were evacuated, those evacuated areas.
Yeah, and I heard just last week.
Let me jump in on that too. So, yeah, once again, it's one of those it depends answers. So we in the fire service obviously would prefer that you leave your house unlocked. If that, certainly all the doors and windows closed, but if the doors were unlocked, it would allow us to get in and close any windows that you forgot and left open, check for pets, check to make sure that there wasn't anybody in there. You know, like I always tell you about gates, we will get in through your gate. You may not be happy with the results. The same thing is true for your doors to your house. We're going to get into your house. You may not be happy with the results of that. So, you know, I can't tell you don't lock your house if you're worried about somebody coming in and stealing anything. I'm certainly not going to be responsible for looters coming in. I think that it's very unlikely that somebody's going to get in and steal stuff with the number of firefighters and the law enforcement that's there, but there is no absolute guarantee. So, you know, it's a battling of the yin and the yang there. Do I leave my house unlocked so firefighters can get in if they need to, or am I worried about my stuff on the inside? So we don't have the perfect answer for that, but you heard the law enforcement side and the fire side now.
And something else too, I'll jump in quick to address that a lot of people had concerns about putting the evacuation tag on their house because they, you know, I've read the social media posts, everybody thinks, well, that's just going to be an invitation to looters. But like you've heard, I think some of you have seen the video that Lieutenant Jacobs made. Sheriff's Department's going to be increasing its presence. And again, if you've got an evacuation tag on your door and somebody's moving things out of your house, I'm sure they're going to go ask that individual what they're doing. So again, I'm sure Sergeant Cortera would echo that, but there's going to be that whole area is going to be locked down. I think back to like when I evacuated Lake Wildwood for the Lobo fire, nobody should have been allowed in or out because at that point the Sheriff's Department owned security for that area.
Jim, I'm sure none of us regular people have ever really seen a house that's at threat of being burned down and the fire guys there. Is it frequent that the firemen need to go in the house to help fight the fire?
Well, first of all, your statement is a little questionable that we're normal people on the fire side, because we're not always that way. It's not frequent that we need to go inside of the house. We have many different reasons for going inside the house. Like I said, pets, to make sure there isn't anybody in there. If a window was left open as an area of shelter for us, should the fire get too bad, there's all those different reasons that we would need to go inside of the house. It doesn't always happen, but it does happen sometimes.
Thank you.
And then what I tell people when I'm doing an advisory visit is if they do have to evacuate, they should turn off the gas, leave the water on, connect the garden hoses and lay them out, and leave the lights on in the house. So is that good or bad advice, Chief?
That's all good advice.
Okay. Okay. All right. Is there, let's see, any other, there's another that a question? Wake up. Oh, close all the windows. Yes, absolutely. Close all the windows. So when you leave the house, again, chiefs, jump in here. Close the windows, and if you have furniture on the porch that isn't metal, if there's cushions or wooden items on the deck, either throw them over the rail 30 feet away from the house, or bring them inside the house so that they're not subject to embers that are flying around. So yes, definitely close the windows.
Yeah, that moving the furniture and stuff like that, that gets into your time frame that you should be evacuating. If you have a really good plan and it's a high fire danger day and there's threat of PSPS and you start to see some smoke maybe a mile away, if you have a plan to move all that stuff to the inside of your house or to a shed or a garage or away from your home, that's the time to do it, not when it's time to evacuate. We certainly don't want you spending time worrying about your furniture on your decks or anything like that. When it's time to get out, it's time to get out, and don't do anything to delay that.
Okay, we're running a little on the late side here. Virginia, I'm going to ask you to hold over until next month, please. Thank you. And then Pete had a, are you there still, Pete? Can you be quick?
I can be quick.
All right, go.
Okay, this is an ask for the Firewise communities to help us, the Fire Safe Council. I'm on the Fire Safe Council. Help us get more defensible space advisory visits done. So here's some numbers for you. I'm not going to talk about what they are. I presume most of you know what they are. Some of you are advisors. I know some of the folks on the screen here that are advisors. And so what we want to do is promote and get more advisory visits done. Some numbers. These are different from the inspections done by the enforcement agencies. These are the visits, the advisory visits that we have no enforcement power. And of course, you guys know that our visits, the documents, the results of those visits are not shared with anybody. They're not shared with insurance companies, law enforcement agencies. They're just for the homeowner, and they get stuck in a file drawer at the Fire Safe Council. Okay, so it's advice for them, because we can talk about defensible space all the time, but it's nice to have another set of eyes come to your house and take a look and give you ideas that you might not really know or you can't see. So it's a good thing you know this stuff. But in 2018, the Fire Safe Council advisors, there's about 40 of them that are trained, did about 400 visits in the county. Then there was Paradise in November of 18, and we did about 1,300 in 2019, a lot more. And we hope to really up that number quite a bit more. But COVID-19 happened and so on. And so really by the time, another comparison, this year, right now, as of now, we've got about 200 requests. And last year, this time we had 1,000 requests. Okay, so we want to do more. We think it's very valuable. We think people learn from it, and they're going to do a better job and perhaps save their house after they evacuate. So how do we do that? Here's how it works now, is that basically individuals are asked to call the Fire Safe Council or to visit our Contact Us page on our website. Well, that's a very passive way of doing it. We'd like to be more proactive and get out there and ask you as Firewise community leaders to promote that in your areas. Now we had a couple where this is happening now. In January, there's a Brunswick area HOA, and they contacted us and said, not like I have one, we have 10 houses, we'd like to have 10 visits done. So we organized ourselves, and Bob Hanna and Bob Long and Maura Knox and I went out to the houses, and we went in pairs at that time, and we looked at all those 10 houses. And then I think, Bob, I don't know if you went to their community meeting afterwards to kind of summarize results. That didn't happen because of COVID, I suppose. Yeah, so the point is that was an organized effort by a neighborhood to get defensible space advisory visits done. Currently, there's another place called a Stonebridge development, and there's 35 homes. And they have their annual Firewise community meetings, and Don Thane and I have gone and talked to them, and now they are organized and trying to get everybody in their development to agree to having a visit. And so I have a list right now, like 12, and we're kind of working our way down the list. And, you know, some people are kind of lukewarm about doing it. So they may not do it until they hear from their neighbors that, hey, it's pretty cool. They actually gave me some good ideas. So what I'm really asking for is for the Firewise communities to not just put the word out, but maybe try to organize something where here, so that you guys can give us a list. Here's, in our Firewise community, here's 15 neighbors that would like to get a visit. We think that'd be more effective rather than just sitting back and waiting for individuals to contact us. That makes sense? Was that quick enough?
That's good.
Okay.
And it works. Then you would get 2 of us out there and you get a little more information, although we do talk a lot.
Yeah.
And it takes a little longer, but it's more fun, and we can do a whole neighborhood in a short time.
We even thought about for this Stonebridge thing is having a DSAB Saturday. And so we'd have, say, 10 houses that want to get viewed, visited, and we'd bring in 4 or 5 advisors and go boom, 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 and get them all done. So maybe that's something you guys could do, is organize a DSAB Saturday or Friday sometime, and then, you know, we'll bring whatever is needed to get the DSABs done.
Pete, Valerie's asking who would they contact to initiate it if they do get everybody in their neighborhood together? Then should they contact you directly or use the form at the website?
Yeah, you can contact me through the Fire Safe Counselor directly. I'll give you my number. It's 530-265-2686.
I will put that in the chat.
That'd be great.
Pete Williams, 530-265.
2686.
2686?
Yes, yes.
All right.
Or if you
We
forget
can get
all
a lot
that,
more done. You know, if we get some help, we can get a lot more done. I think it's really important to do that. So there you are.
if you forget all that, you can always message the coalition and we'll forward it to the Fire Safe Council.
Perfect.
A couple of finishing things here, and then we'll let everybody go. Somebody asked about closing garage doors. Close all your doors. Close all your doors and all your windows. Question was asked about gas cans. Ouch. Gas cans should be in a building, not your house, not your garage. They should be in an outbuilding. If they're not in an outbuilding, away from the house, but not near a road that an emergency vehicle is going to be coming along. So give some thought to the proper storage and safety of fuel cans. I apologize. I did not ask people to introduce themselves if they were new to our organization, new to this group. If you are, there will be a place on our website, on the coalition website, to sign up for the mailing list. So if you'll go there tomorrow or the next day, you'll find a form to fill out so that we can add you to the mailing list. And last but not least, I want to reiterate what Julie said. The green waste was brought to you this year through several grants, but it went way larger than was anticipated. It is an extremely inexpensive event for a homeowner, the service that the green waste disposal provided this year. So please, if the green waste service was good to you, be good to the Fire Safe Council and join as a member. It's only $49. With that, I think we're done. Did I forget anything, Susan? No?
Not that I can think of.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us tonight. Email us if you have something, a presentation you want to make in August. Watch for our invitation that we'll be sending out to invite all the members of your Firewise community to the August meeting. So we'll be looking for 300 people online that night. In the meantime, don't forget about the 5 feet around your house. Please stay safe. Wear a mask. None of you are wearing a mask tonight. And you were in a group of over 50 people.
Thank goodness.
So, bad, naughty. So anyway, everybody be safe and have a great month. Thank you very much. Good night, all. And thank you, Caleb. Always thank you very much to you and the county for sharing the Zoom website. Okay. Good night, everybody.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, this wonderful community, for all you're doing to keep us safe. I will end the recording and send you the link, Bob,
Thanks a
so you
lot.
can share it with
Okay.
the group.
Good night, Caleb. Good night, everybody.
All right.